usually. There's lots of subjective moral values. Is it good to kill somebody? Well, depends.
Okay, so
oh God, I love that. That's my favorite part of the whole thing. I'm only like 15 minutes in, but my goodness, that made me laugh so hard. That was just unintentionally hilarious. Wow, that went on for a long time. So apparently Bart Ehrman had gone on to Sean McDowell's show to debate morality and philosophy. Apparently, it's kind of seems kind of outside of his particular field of expertise, but well, I guess trying to get him off guard, like this is the guy that talks all that crap about Jesus. Yeah, get him. Well, I know what we'll do. We'll throw some Frank Turek stuff at him. That'll get him. Yeah, he won't know what to do. He's a scholar. I'm pretty sure he's going to know what to do. But they at least know some philosophy, especially when they're writing books about it and shit. All right, yeah, we're going to get into this. And I am very excited about it because I could not believe it when I saw that this was actually up there. It's like, wait a second, that's Bart Ehrman. Why is he on his channel? He should be on mine. That was really the problem. The thing I was thinking is, why isn't he on my channel? All right, let's go. I'm Brantley. This is a Punk Apostate. Let's go. Let's go. So we got this. All right, let's start this sucker over. Because it kind of just like I was gonna skip a lot of the beginning because a lot of times they just are like, let's find some common ground first. But I feel like even those attempts didn't really work out the way Sean thought it would. But all right, hold on. I hate how you can't drag it all the way back. It just drives me crazy. Okay.
I'm simply saying,
if
there's one, let me make this point. If there's
one,
but
you misconstrued me. That's not what I said.
Okay, then correct me. I didn't want to misstate you. Go ahead.
I didn't say that. I said that if you think there are objectively moral facts, why can't you isolate? I didn't say that was a matter of opinion. I'm saying you and I have opinions about things. What's the objective truth? The objective truth is we have different opinions.
We have morally improved since that time. I have no problem saying that. And I think the vast majority of people would be with me.
But we're just going to.
Okay. It's so funny how he kind of like shoots himself in the foot, right? Even from the coming up, I am wrong. Check it out. I'm the one advocating for objective moral values, yet our morality is something that has changed and improved over time. I don't really see how that could be.
I disagree on this. I'm just saying that my view is as coherent as your view.
Bart Ehrman is one of the most influential atheist/agnostics today. He's written multiple New York Times best-selling books.
You're doing the /agnostic thing. Like, no, /agnostic. Come on. Don't limit my audience that much. Come on, dude.
Is recently a retired professor from UNC Chapel Hill and is the author of the...
Oh, man, I wanted to take a class, but yeah, I guess I kind of missed the boat on that one.
New book, Love Thy Stranger, which I found fascinating and enjoyable. There's a ton we agree on, which is where we will start. And then we're going to get to the heart of the book, where I suspect we have some disagreement, and we're going to have a little bit of fun. Bart, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so right at the beginning of the book, in the introduction, you state your thesis, and you say, my argument in this book is that the impulse to help...
Said Sean McDowell is lacking the promotion department sometimes. He's not exactly effective as Wes Huff. That is true. Wes has got that part down, doesn't he? Yeah. I wonder if like just AI picked those clips. They're like, you sound like guys are sort of heated, kind of. I don't know. I'm a robot. What do I know? There you go.
Strangers in need is embedded in our Western moral conscience because of the teachings of Jesus. Tell us about that and kind of the heart of your book.
I got very interested in why it is that when there's a disaster that hits, there's a hurricane or there's a flood, there's an earthquake, and people are in need. We know of starvation in various parts of the world, whatever. We feel this impulse to help. We write a check, or locally we visit us. We volunteer at a soup kitchen or whatever, and that's true not only of people who are Christian. It's true of just about everybody in the West. It's not that everybody does it. Right? It's not that everybody has huge, but people have that kind of pull, and many people act on it, regardless of their religious commitments. And I got interested in that because,
well, I mean, it's funny too. Like, I wonder how many people have like actually been through some kind of natural disaster. If you're in California, everybody, doesn't matter who you are, that's you have experienced one of all the natural disasters that exist in that one state for whatever reason, other than maybe like a sandstorm or something. I don't know, some kind of no, they got deserts, right? They have everything. I don't know what I'm talking about, never mind. But and so yeah, I feel like people that have been through stuff like that tend to be a bit more empathetic even, because the main thing about conservatives, it seems, is like they won't do stuff like that unless it's something that's happened to somebody they know or themselves.
Because among other things, I'm an expert on the ancient world generally, and I've been long intrigued with ancient Greek and Roman moral philosophy, as well as ancient Judaism, before Christianity, and this impulse was not there. And you can.
He said it's true for everyone. I didn't even hear that part. It's Bart's first major mistake. It's not true of everyone, and he's giving Sean an easy one. Yeah, he kind of was there. If he said, yeah, I mean, it depends what he said that about. I don't know did he just say it just now, or was it in the opening clip? Because I thought he was trying to like catch him on that, but he was like saying it's true that people have opinions or something like that.
Demonstrate it was not there. And so my question was, well, how did it get here then? If it wasn't there, how did it get here? And my thesis in my book is that Jesus had
no, I don't know. You might not have misheard it. I'm not saying that. I thought he had said something like that, but I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out in a sec here.
A different idea from moral philosophers of his day and from his Jewish tradition, so far as we can tell, that when people are in need, we need to help them, whatever their relation to us is, whether we know them or not, if we don't know them, it doesn't matter what their nationality is, what their ethnicity is, what their religion is, what their gender is, anything like that. Nothing matters except they're in need. That this was the teaching of Jesus.
That's kind of funny, because that is absolutely not the way that Christians take it. They're like, no, we always help the needy. We sure do. Yes, that's, wait a second, a trans person. Do we really have to do the everybody's thing? That's yeah, because they'll have like shelters and stuff, and then they're like, want to sit there and mistreat the people that they're helping because they happen to be trans.
And because his followers ended up taking over the Roman Empire, that became the ethical message that was preached for centuries.
It's funny, I know we're not going to get very many comments or chat, I guess, in here for a bit. I didn't realize that I'm going live like at the exact same time that Kip Davis has a premiere. He's got a premiere going on right now. It's like, God damn, how did I miss that?
So much so that it's just embedded in us if we live in the West. And so that's what the thesis of the book is, that it starts.
And it's a Bible scholar too, which is just so funny. So like all the Bible scholars. Anyway.
To the teachings of Jesus.
Now, what's so fascinating about this to me is I've read some of your books that deal with historical issues, New Testament issues, but this is a book in which you're weighing into ethics and what might even be called meta-ethics, kind of the grounding of right and wrong and the moral transformation that takes place. You might have answered this, but I was really curious if there's more of a backstory to why you wrote this book. Like, you're in your lane in some sense. It comes out towards the end of the book, some of your critiques of the New Testament differences, which is fine. But in some ways, you're stepping a little bit outside of your lane, or correct me if you see it differently, and weighing into these moral, ethical issues, which for me, given that you've had conversations and debate with so many scholars, I thought this is such a fascinating angle, was in particular fascinated with this book. But does that ring true to you? And is there more of any backstory why you wrote this book in particular?
Well, there are two backstories. One is that I've been it's out of my lane in terms of what I publish for general audiences, but it's not out of my lane in terms of my academic work. When I came to Chapel Hill in 1988, my first semester, I was teaching Greek and Roman moral philosophy, and kind of ancient Greek and Roman religion and such. And so I've been very interested in this field for a long time.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that he had taught moral philosophy. I mean, he's talking about ancient Greek moral philosophy, which that's interesting. So I guess it would would that be different than like the meta ethics and everything like that? Because he's looking at like the moral philosophy prior to that kind of stuff, right? Although I don't know the time periods on this stuff.
The other thing is kind of a more immediate background about what got me interested in writing this particular book. My most recent book was an academic book, so it's one that most people wouldn't know about. It was published with Yale University Press, and it was called Journeys to Heaven and Hell. I wrote a separate book that was called Heaven and Hell, that was a trade book for general audiences. But this Journeys book was written for academics, and it was dealing with this issue that you have in ancient texts. You have a lot of ancient texts in Greek and Roman and Jewish circles, and then in Christian circles, that describe guided tours of heaven and hell, where people actually go to the places of the damned and the places of the blessed, going back as far as we have literature. It's in Homer in the Odyssey, book 10. It's in Virgil in the Aeneid, book 6. It's in, and you get it in, so those Greek and Roman, you get a lot of it in Greek and Roman circles, you get in Jewish circles, and then you end up getting in Christian circles. And my analysis of these things was to try and show.
Okay, that's right. Never mind. Yeah, because the ancient Greece is, that is like Socrates and Plato and everything like that. So I guess that is the same ancient Greece like time period that they were dealing with for meta ethics and everything. I don't know why. I feel like it just sounds like it should be later, but I always forget there's like parts of the Bible where they're like talking to philosophers and shit.
That these various they're called catastrophes.
What's up, Theo? How we doing, man?
These various journeys.
Felicia's here too, by the way. I mean, you can introduce yourselves to each other.
The traditions.
Do I have to do it? Felicia, this is Theo. Theo, that's Felicia. All good people right here.
Are used not so much to show what the afterlife is really like. The literary function of these is to show people how they ought to behave in the present. In light of realities of the life and possibly afterlife, you ought to act this way. And in that book, I did a comparison of Greek understandings of the afterlife with Christian understandings of the afterlife, specifically with the question of what's wrong with being wealthy. Because Greek thinkers thought that the problem with being wealthy is it made you a selfish, greedy, unpleasant person that nobody liked.
Brett collects good people like Pokemon. That's right. I shrink them down and then I put them in jars. I have several rooms full now. It really freaks out when guests come over for dinner. I try to tell them they'll go in that room, and it's right where you'd think the bathroom should be. It's a problem. Actually, I probably should put them in a better room. One that doesn't look like it's the bathroom. Yeah, freaks them out. They leave immediately without even saying goodbye. I think it scares them. I don't know.
That. And the Christian view was that if you do that, you're not helping the poor, so you won't get into heaven. And so in the Greek tradition, it was all about like your character. And in the Christian tradition, it was about helping the poor. And I just thought that's really interesting contrast. I'd like to write that for a general audience. So the book started off with that as the theme, but then it expanded, as you know, into broader issues of Christian love and forgiveness, and as well as charitable giving.
And it's funny, Theo, like you were literally, when was it? You had called in to a show and it just had basically this conversation, kind of course, not from a Christian perspective, but about like moral anti-realism and stuff like that, which is so interesting. I actually really enjoyed the call that you did on Skeptic Haven.
That is fascinating. I don't recall reading that in the book, but that makes sense. That would draw you into writing this, given your background and interests. So let's dive in. The subtitle of the book, again, the title, Love Thy Stranger, of course, a unique play.
I just formulated my theory of secular objective ethics. Oh, yeah. I'll have to check that out. You should, you got to map it out for me at some point here.
Off of Love Thy Neighbor, and that our neighbor, you mentioned, is not just our in-group before Jesus. It became the out-group in this universal ethic to care for a neighbor. The subtitle is,
which all the Christians managed to forget. Which is kind of weird. Their main dude was like the first guy to be like, hey, we should even care about people that aren't just like you and look like you and dress like you and express gender just like you and all this type of stuff. And they're like, yeah. And now they're like, fuck yeah. Like, no, it totally went off the rails at some point.
How the teachings of Jesus transformed the moral conscience of the West.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, post it on the Discord. That'd be cool.
And you give some specific examples here. You say, prior to the spread of Christianity, there were no public hospitals in the Roman world, no orphanages, poorhouses, or old persons' homes, no government assistance to help those in need, or private charities to minister to the poor, homeless and hungry. These are Christian innovations. Now, of course, as a Christian, I'm cheering this thing on, going, yes, there's a lot of other writers that you talk about, people like Tom Holland, who have attributed these things to Christians.
Yeah, dude, playing Spider. I can't wait for the new Spider-Man. It's gonna be pretty cool. I hear Jean Grey might be in it. I don't know. It's kind of a rumor. Not really sure what's going on there. Scorpion's definitely in it though. Why are we talking about Spider-Man? I forgot what we were doing.
You also indicate that there's this shift. So not only positively helping, but this shift away from a culture of dominance, where fathers could dominate their kids, dominate their wives physically, but also sexually. So from one of dominance to one of service. So
when everybody is consenting adults, that stuff is awesome. But only then. Then and only then is it awesome.
The heart of my question is
otherwise it's literally crimes.
When you call this a moral transformation, is this a change on a horizontal level in which it's just a change, like, say, clothing styles have changed over time?
Christians manage to forget a lot of details they shouldn't gloss over. Yeah, they're not detail oriented, and neither am I. That's sort of, it was because I was raised Christian, I think. They're like, whatever, don't worry about the details. Just, Jesus. That's the answer. When people are like, what's the answer to the problem? Jesus. That's all you got to say. You're good, right?
Or is this an objectively good transformation that Jesus brought, that we ought to live the way that Jesus lived and support things like hospitals, orphanages, and poorhouses?
I mean, unless you're cleaning his feet, right? Then fuck the poor, right? And that wasn't that part of the thing, because he was like, hey, they're always going to be here, whatever.
I would say some things are objectively good, in my opinion. I think it's good that we have hospitals. It's good we have orphanage. It's good that we have disaster relief programs. I think these are good. This is my personal opinion. Since it's my personal opinion, I don't think it's objective. But my view is those are good things. I am not claiming in the book that Jesus' teachings are fully implemented by Christians or ever have been. I do argue that Jesus had a different ideology of service rather than domination, and that was really quite different from anything you get in moral philosophy in the ancient world. I'm not saying that his followers followed his teachings on this. I mean, it's quite clear that the Christian church throughout.
It's kind of funny to me too, though. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's not really a moral philosophy, but in Buddhism they talk about loving or love and compassion for like every creature on earth, including the people that you don't like. That's a big part of. There's certain meditations for that. It's like meditation is exactly that. It's just thinking about sending love to people that you don't like. I mean, you do everybody. You go like, you start with yourself, then you go to the people that you love the most, and then you move on to like this, and then finally you end with like all creatures, including plants and stuff. What, but got to send those plants to love. They feel it too, right? They're like, oh, thank goodness, somebody's loving me right now. I knew it. Nobody ever loves us blades of grass. We're just walked all over. Like we don't even matter.
History has preferred dominance at many times and still does today, and that many individual Christians have not taken on board the idea that you should live a life of service rather than a life of domination. And it's quite clear at every level in our society that hasn't taken on. But the intervention that I think that Jesus made that has stuck with us is that if we want to do good things for other people, we should focus not just on our family and friends, but on those in need, that's the priority. And I think that did make a radical difference in the Western world, not just in the institutions.
Because like, I'm almost positive, let me look this up just to be double sure. But I'm almost positive that like the golden rule was stated, it was a different version of it, of course, but like it was stated by Buddhists prior to Jesus, because it's an older religion. Early golden rule. Yeah, treating others as you want to be treated. Ancient Egypt. I thought that it was something from before that. Confucianism, 6th to 5th century BCE. Okay, so yeah, right there. But okay. So there's a negative form of the golden. That's interesting. I never heard it put like that. There's a negative form, the silver rule. Interesting. Early versions were often phrased negatively, focusing on avoiding harming others. Do not do. That's interesting. Which was common in Greek, Buddhist, and Confucius. Okay, so I guess because it goes to the negative direction, does that still count? It's a silver rule. I mean, it's almost as good as the golden rule, right?
Also in our conscience, we think that we ought to do that.
Okay, so here's where I think
hey, the push, what's going on? How we doing?
Clarity would help us here. You said in one sense that these are objective, and then twice you said, but in your opinion. So these are not objectively moral improvements within themselves. That's a part of my question. And maybe we could clarify what we mean by objective. Is I pulled up a book on meta ethics just to read objective. And if you disagree with this, it's totally fine.
It's by Frank Turek. If you look, hold on, let me get to the part where he says it.
He says, moral realism's basic claim is that some things are right and some things are wrong, or good or bad, regardless of people's beliefs, preferences, or attitudes regarding them. So just like there's certain historical facts true outside of us.
I don't understand how that could be. He just said outside. Wait, what was it? Outside of what?
Or bad, regardless of people's beliefs, preferences, or attitudes regarding them.
Their beliefs regarding them? How do you have something that is like morally good, that is right when we're talking about human behavior, and it's outside of all everybody's beliefs? I don't understand how you can do this. You can put it in objective terms as long as you establish a goal, but if anybody, like other people, don't have to agree to that goal, and then not only that, like you can also have like disagreement from their as to like what the best way to even affect that goal would be. So there's a lot of issues just going from, I just don't know why this is such a thing. Like, what is the point of this? Other than doing the philosophy thing where you're just sort of thinking and it's fun. I get it. But like, Why does it have to be objective? Like, I just don't understand. Christians are like so hard up about this because their whole thing, and this is where it like falls apart for them. And I want everybody to keep this in mind. He has said, Sean McDowell made it pretty clear that he thinks that that morality has improved. I mean, I would hope that he would say that morality has improved since Jesus's day. I've heard him say it other places, but that morality has improved since Jesus's day. The God that decides what morality is, and the whole reason it's objective, according to him, is because he's got a personal relationship with the dude that invented the shit, and yet it's improved since Jesus, and not even because of Christians. Slavery was a normal institution for 1800 of the 2000 years that Christians have existed. That's a long time to be wrong, especially when you have a personal relationship with the guy that invented the shit. Morality, I mean. You know what I mean?
So just like there's certain historical facts true outside of us, there's certain scientific facts true outside of us, there's moral facts true outside of us.
No, how can it be true outside of us? We're the thing. This is like saying there is an objective best movie. Okay, there is an objective. Don't bring up the Citizen Kane shit. That is not the best movie. Fuck you. Okay, that movie's boring as hell. Are you kidding me? Anyway, but there is an objective best movie, and it's a movie that nobody's invented yet, but it's a standard of best movie outside of anybody that makes movies. Not according to the opinions of the people that make movies. You know what I mean? Like that. How? They're the ones that do the shit. They're the ones that decide what is right, what is good, and what is bad about movies. You know what I mean? Like, and because they make them, it's like saying that there is like an objective best movie that's not made and decided upon by people that make movies. That's ridiculous. It's made up by people. So how the hell could it be outside of our beliefs?
That's typically what's meant by moral objectivism. And so it sounds like you're saying you're a moral subjectivist, that the teachings of Jesus, they're based upon somebody's opinion, whether they adopt them or not. They're not actually objectively.
The Flintstones. I mean, it was directed by Steven Spielberg. So, or I'm sorry, you just presented it, which, that hurt. And it took me forever to realize that because I would tell, oh, that's a Steven Spielberg one. Everybody's like, what? No, it wasn't. What are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, Steven Spielberg at the beginning. What are you talking about? And they're like, he just presented it. And I'm like, well, what does it mean when they pretend? Like, fucking nothing, dude. It means nothing. It means Steven Spielberg is like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll throw my name on that. I got nothing to do with it, but sure, I'll put it out there for you.
Good within themselves. Did I categorize that correctly?
I think you're doing two different categories. Some things are objective. It's objective that there are public hospitals.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What's up, cruise ship? How we doing, dude?
It's not objective that that moral values are either good or bad. Usually, there's lots of subjective moral values.
They're values. They're shit that's valuable to people. How do you have something that's valuable to nobody? That just doesn't make any sense.
Is it good to kill somebody? Well, depends.
Okay, so I assume you were done there. You said,
God, I love that. I got one more time. I know we've already watched it twice. That is so good.
Are either good.
It's like the longest. It's the longest pause. It's like did they think each other's screen froze for a second? Like what happened?
Good or bad. Usually, there's lots of subjective moral values. Is it good to kill somebody? Well, depends.
okay, so I assume you were done there. You said it's, I agree with you in principle.
I was reading the chat. Felicia said, just another objectivity versus subjectivity argument. Yeah, we get. I know we do a lot of those. I always find it fun. I'm an anti-realist, but it said I'm an emergent moralist. So this one is kind of talking past me. I don't know what that is. What's an emergent moralist? I'm not really familiar with that. I dabble in the philosophy stuff. It gets quite wordy, and I feel like at some point that's all they are, words. And they've lost all meaning, at some point. It takes a minute, but eventually I'm counting the cracks on the ceiling. And I really need to get that thing fixed. Holy shit. Why do we have so many cracks? What's going on with that, dude? Is it old paint? Is there moisture up there? What's going on? Is the whole roof going to cave in on me at some point? Is a hurricane going to knock my whole house down next time? Anyway.
That sometimes it depends whether we should kill somebody or not. Maybe you and I would agree in self-defense, that's morally okay. So
not necessarily. Yes. In some cases, it's okay. That's the point, though. If it's based on a situation, then it's not objective that it's good or bad to kill somebody. It depends on the situation.
Okay, so some moral claims depend upon the situation, but that doesn't make them necessarily subjective. So, for example, the claim, so in your book, we could jump straight to the case as you condemn.
He's going to do the Frank Turek tortured babies for good. And I actually have a response to that. Where you can say, nope, actually, nope.
Anti-Semitism and violence against.
Okay, I went for anti-Semitism. I didn't see that coming. I thought he was going to do the Frank Turek torturing the babies thing.
Jews, which you argue led to the Holocaust. So let's talk about that one. Are there circumstances that would make that okay? Or is it universally wrong to do what the Nazis did against the Jews?
I don't have any access to any kind of universal objectivity. I'm a human being, and I have thoughts and views. So do you. If there were something that was a universally objective moral value, our only access to it would be through our brains. And our brains are objects. You have roughly 100 billion neurons in yours. I've got a few less in mine. But since our recognition of morality is based on our human perception, even if you want to claim that there's some kind of moral objectivity, we have no direct access to it except through our subjectivity.
Okay, so I think there might be.
Because wait, where? Felicia said he just conceded the entire argument. What did he say? I guess I missed it.
Our brain.
It was right before he was saying the brain.
Universal objectivity.
To do. So let's talk about that one. Are there circumstances that would make that okay? Or is it universally wrong to do what the Nazis did against the Jews?
I don't have any access to.
Is it just before that? Oh, no.
Which you argue led to the Holocaust. So let's talk about that. Depend upon the situation, but that doesn't make them necessarily subjective. So, for example, the claim, so in your book, we could jump straight to the case as you condemn anti-Semitism and violence against Jews, which you argue led to the Holocaust.
Huh. I don't know. Maybe I'd have to go back further. Maybe chat's a little behind.
And whether or not something is actually true. So historical claim.
Okay. So he admitted that some morals are based on circumstance. Well, yeah. How could that be? So like, what is he? This is what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And even if, because here's the thing that I find interesting, because usually, like I was saying, the example that they always give is it okay to like torture babies or whatever for fun? And I always say, like, what if it's a surgeon and he really likes his work? He enjoys just the cutting part of it, which, is hard. It's cutting out, it's mutilation, if you look at it from a certain perspective, but you have to kind of like take his intent into it, because if there was some dude just out cutting kids, then yeah, that'd be a little bit different than a surgeon who has the intent of helping the kid, even though he enjoys mutilating them. You know what I mean? But but you'd say, oh, well, then the good is better than the what. But what about Abraham, dude? Like, didn't Abraham wasn't he like asked by God to stab his own kid, have his kid be a sacrifice? So was him asking him to do that moral? Was it objectively moral for God to ask him to do that? And you're like, no, I just wanted to make sure you would do the thing that we use as an objectively evil thing. I just wanted to make sure you would do that for me. That the God that invented morality. Like, what the fuck? Like, how does this work?
In the past, which you claim are objective, we know them. Okay, so let me ask you this. You think some of your views about the New Testament are right and Christians are wrong. Do you hold that view?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that as a subject, you are the one who studies this. And so just because a subject analyzes something doesn't mean they don't think they're true, and it does mean they're not true.
Yeah, Bart really missed his opportunity. If like I said, if you agreed to that, that he should have jumped on that.
So if that's true for history, if that's true for science, why would that not be true for morality? That just because we're subjects engaging in something doesn't mean there's no objective truth that we can debate and we can discuss and we can kind of analyze.
I'm saying if there is an objective truth, we have no access to it as subjects. We only have access to what we think is true. And it's not fair to compare history and science because they're very different. They have different modes of establishing their truth claims.
Because there is like an ontological, I think it's considered ontological, where it's like this, just a concept out in the ether, not actually tied to anything specific, but just the concept of there being something that is the objective good. We can't know what it is. We don't, it's like separate from epistemology, you would have like this ontological. But my whole thing is if it's separate from epistemology, who gives a shit? It literally doesn't matter because we can't know it. If there is some floating, disembodied, objective morality out in the ether that you could imagine there being out there, that does nothing for the people that need to use their brains to be able to figure out what is actually right and what is wrong based off of, their lived experiences and their natural needs and natural desires to avoid pain and things like that.
Historians can only establish the probabilities of what happened in the past, sometimes with relative certainty, virtual certainty for most of us, and sometimes with great uncertainty. Science isn't about predicting the past or trying to explain the past. It's about predicting the future. If you do a chemical experiment and it comes out a certain way and you redo it 1,000 times, it comes out the same way every time, you use that experiment as a basis then to do the next thing. And so it has predictive value. And so they're dealing with different things. History is dealing with the past and probabilities. Science is based on experimentation for predictive values, different things.
Very different things. It's weird too that he's, laying it out that way, where it's just, I guess, as a history, Bible scholar and everything, it makes sense, but, it just sounds weird to me. When somebody's just like, this is based on all probabilities, we do our best, whatever. Which I know science is the same way, but but not as much, I'd say, or not as, not as ambiguously, I guess, as, is that the right word? Ambiguously? I don't know. as history. The fact that they're like, it's more likely that this happened than that because of like so many competing narratives and everything like that. It's really complex. Hence the postmodernist shit and all that.
Okay, so I agree with you on the last point that you made, that how we know certain truths in
What's up, Skeptic Philosophy? How we doing?
history is different than how we know certain truths in math, but it's also different than how we know certain truths in morality. So if science, we know truths maybe by repeating things and having hypotheses and empirically investigating them, the mere fact that we are subjects trying to know and analyze something in science doesn't mean there's not a truth. Same thing applies to history. We don't examine and study things in the same way that we do scientifically. There's a different means to it, but the mere fact that we are subjects trying to figure out what is historically true doesn't mean there's no objective truth that is there.
But this is what kills me about this sort of thing, is that morality is entirely based on people and what they think, not only themselves, but everybody else should behave like. And that is not the same as an objective truth. That's not the same as science. There's an objective fact that that gravity does what gravity does. And it's an objective fact that, the 300 soldiers went against the Persian army or whatever. Like that's not the same thing. Yes, there's an objective reality. And both those things are investigating that objective reality. But morality is completely separate from that, because it's entirely concocted by people.
So my point is that I agree with you.
If there is objective truth, we have no access.
Okay, so my only point so far, and then I'll come back to that, because I think the point you're making is
What's up, Robin? How we doing?
really important, is that there's different ways we know truth in science. There's different ways we know truth in history. And the mere fact,
and that's true. But okay, and Theo said science is not, or is also not an objective truth, but a model, right? But it's a model that is investigating what we would assume is an objective truth, right? Like there's an objective reality, and then there's our ability to access that, and there's a massive gap there. And yeah, we have models of investigating the way that objective reality functions, and then we test, we update those models, we get better instruments, and we constantly are going back over the same stuff. We're constantly figuring out, oh man, we were actually wrong about that because we got this new device and everything. But there is an objective reality that we are investigating, right? I mean, if there's not, then wow, that certainly complicates things quite a bit,
that we are subjects trying to discover something in different means doesn't follow that there's no truth. That's the only comparison that I made between history and between science, and then between morality. And so you said we have no access.
They're totally different things.
To moral truth. I guess I'd say a couple things. I don't know what it means to know moral truth through our brains. It makes sense with science because we're studying physical matter, but moral truths are not physical. They're immaterial. They don't have weight. So clearly we're going to access them differently than we do science, just like history accesses things.
But you're just calling them moral truths and then just acting like they exist, man. That's not how that works. It's like we are investing. And the other thing is, like science would acknowledge that if they were wrong, like there isn't, there isn't this thing that exists or whatever. If these science experiments would ever come out with them, proving that whatever their theory is or their hypothesis was, that it's not true, they will not say that it's a truth. Like he's sitting there saying it's a moral truth just before being able to demonstrate that that's the case whatsoever. He's just sort of decided that that's a thing.
Things differently than science. So my question is, you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said we have no access to moral truth. How do you know that?
It's my opinion. Just as yours is your opinion.
Okay, so Yes, we have opinions about things. So let me ask a
Prove it. Prove that you got access to objective truth, buddy. Do it. Do it.
clear one. So most people would agree with this. They would say torturing a child for fun or burning a child alive for adults' pleasure is wrong. Now, I have no problem. I'm about as close to being 100% certain as possible that torturing a child for adult
God damn it. Okay, we got the
entertainment is
they made it adult. Why adult entertainment? That's weird.
wrong. And we don't know that the way we know science.
For sexual gratification, that made it uncomfortable. I guess they're trying to make it uncomfortable. But you see how he has to put in the reason that they're doing it. You know, they're like, no, but because you can torture a child as long as your intentions are good, that you're trying to help that kid because of the surgeon thing. So that's why they add in that for fun, just because I feel like, like that's what they got to put in there for that.
It's in history. We know it intuitively and naturally by reflecting upon it. So do you agree with me that burning a child alive for adult entertainment is wrong?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused because you said it's only a matter of opinion, but now you agree that this is wrong.
I didn't say that was a matter of opinion. I'm saying you and I have opinions about things.
Sure.
If you have an opinion, I have an opinion. What's the objective truth? The objective truth is we have different opinions. But how do you use objective truth in order to establish that you're right about either a historical claim or a moral claim, and that I'm empirically wrong?
How do I do that?
You have to figure it out. You're doing it by your reason. You're thinking about it.
That's right.
Other people think about it and have different views. Not about everything. Most people do agree that when if they were seeing me here, they'd agree I was sitting in a chair. Mm-hmm. I am sitting in a chair. Yeah.
Me too.
But what good does it do to say that there are moral objectives unless you can isolate all of them?
Why would we have to be able to isolate all of them? If
any of them, just any of them. How about that? Like, because you still can't demonstrate that it's objective. That's the weird part here. I just think these are so odd, because just because people's opinions all line up doesn't make it objective. It's got to be true outside of all opinion, which means that we're talking about human behavior, so that's impossible. Literally, you can't have human behavior without the fucking humans.
There's one thing that's morally wrong. That's all we need. Then we have objective moral truth.
But it's not because of objectivity.
Okay, let me take a step back. I'm not sure I'm following your point. You said we can't know certain moral truths unless we know that all moral truths, like you kind of made a universal statement about the number of moral truths we have to say. I'm simply saying,
no, yeah, you are confused, Chad. He's confused about a lot.
If there's one, let me make this point. If there's
one,
but
you misconstrued me. That's not what I said.
Okay, then correct me. I didn't want to misstate you. Go ahead.
I didn't say that. I said that if you think there are objectively moral facts, why can't you isolate them?
I don't know.
I didn't say they couldn't exist if they couldn't exist. I didn't say that. I said if they are there, why can't you name them
and demonstrate it?
Okay, so I certainly don't want to misstate your argument. Thank you for correcting that. But I don't know what it means to isolate them. I can state them. And it seems that you agreed with me that torturing a child for adult entertainment is wrong. That's a universal moral truth.
No, demonstrate it.
Oh, no, I don't think it is.
Okay.
Definitely not.
You don't think that's...
No, in the ancient world, for example...
Yep, I think I know where he's going.
To human beings often practiced child sacrifice. It was often very painful.
There we go.
They thought it was the right thing to do.
Because the gods wanted it, and they were very convinced that the objective, real gods that objectively created the objective universe objectively wanted kids to be tortured for their adult entertainment. So what are you going to do about that?
Now, you could claim they didn't understand the objective truths of morality. Or you could say that actually, this moral truth that we thought was objective and available to everybody was not available to them.
We're not allowed to talk about that on YouTube, Theo. Okay, you're going to get us shut down. No, I'm sorry. You can talk about it. I can't talk about it.
Or we could say a third option. They did have a moral sense, and this would get us into Lewis's argument that you seem to agree that there's at least certain universal or commonly experienced, maybe we won't use the word universal.
Okay. Yeah, but duh. Like, are you serious, man? You're like, okay, but there are things that some people agree are good and agree are bad. So objective. What? No, that's not right, man. That's not the definition of objective.
Commonly experienced moral principles, such as for posterity, caring for our kids, such as loving others in a certain fashion, mercy, justice. These seem to transcend culture. So I have no problem. Let me make this
necessarily, dude. What he just explained. That like there were people literally torturing and unaliving their own children because they thought it was the right thing to do. So it's clearly based on the culture.
Good point. I have no problem pointing back to those who sacrifice their kids, practice cannibalism, some of the things that we see in the Old Testament, and saying, oh, they were doing what was morally wrong. And they should have known better because they have access to basic moral principles.
See, I think because Khrushchev said, why does he keep on bringing up the torturing the kids thing? Because they think that's a gotcha. That there's and if you don't say this, it's more about the debate, I think, and the debate, like people that are watching the debate that don't like understand the concepts of like objective and subjective. So they're trying to get like Bart Ehrman and the atheist interlocutor or whatever to say that it's not objectively immoral to do that to children, right? And then they go, ha, see, atheists are evil. Told you that it's more of just for like the audience watching it. That's why they use that all the time. That's why Frank Turek constantly uses that, because it's not about being correct. It's about giving the people that are incorrect the feelings like they are correct.
And we have morally improved since that time. I have no problem saying that. And I think the vast majority of people would be with me, just like our science is better, our history is better. We have made moral progress from that time.
Then you lose. Then you lose, man. Like, you can't make moral progress unless if there's an objective standard, especially if the inventor of the objective standard is, the dude that wrote a book that was 2,000 years ago and also included how to beat your slave according to God.
Agree.
Well, if you're talking about people who are listening to the podcast, yeah, probably so. If you talk to moral philosophers, probably not. So
not exactly, not objectively morally improved. Like improved according to who? What if like you're somebody that is that wishes we could go back to the Viking days, or the Jim Crow days? Maybe people that they want to make it great again or something, like it was great prior to now or something,
I agree that humans have certain inclinations that absolutely tell us that something is right and wrong. That doesn't mean that there's some kind of objective standard there.
It's absolutely tells us that we think things are right and wrong. We absolutely have opinions about what we think subjectively is right and wrong.
It means that this is our inclination as human beings.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask this. This is helpful, by the way. I'm going to come back to this point about inclination, but in your book, you make two claims. One, you talk about you embrace your beliefs because you think they're superior. Otherwise, you wouldn't embrace them. And by the way, I'm with you. That's what it means to hold a belief. There's nothing elitist about that. I don't fault you for that. But then in page 76, you talk about progress we have made.
He's page numbering. Lauren, he did his homework, dude.
Since our ancient forebears.
Say it again.
Elitist about that. I don't fault you for that. But then in page 76, you talk about progress we have made since our ancient forebears. So if it's all opinion and there's no standard by which we judge, I don't know what superior and progress even means.
No, you don't? You don't believe in progress? Because earlier you said we progressed in terms.
But the thing is, this was so
correct me if
infuriating about this is he doesn't think we've progressed. He thinks that with certain things, like our subjective opinion is that gay people being allowed to get married was like the progress that we needed, because that's good, because the only reason they weren't allowed to do that is because of people that pretend to cannibalize an undead carpenter ghost. They really think it's icky. That's it. So that is good progress to us, yet they would be like, no, that's bad, that's wrong, that's evil. We got to go back to the beliefs when people were hurting gay people and shit. Like, so it's so weird the way that they do this.
If I don't explain this right, there's not an objective moral standard outside of us. We've been wired by evolution to have certain inclinations that feel absolute to us, but they're not actually absolute. That's the explanation for morality.
Say it again. Hold on.
To have certain inclinations that feel absolute to us, but they're not actually absolute. That's the explanation for morality I see in your book. And yet twice in the book, you talk about, you embrace your beliefs because you think they are superior.
Yeah, he just said he thinks. God, it's like they don't understand what objectivity is. It's like they get it and then they forget it just as quickly.
And then on page 76, you talk about moral progress we've made since our ancient forebears. I believe that certain morality is superior. I think the morality of Jesus is superior because I think we do have an obligation to care for the poor.
So that means that you would go back then to like when, because Jesus never said not to own slaves. So like, Jesus Christ.
I think people are made in God's image. And I think we've made progress. So moving beyond slavery, moving beyond cannibalism, moving beyond these kinds of things is progress. But from the ethic you've laid out, insofar as I understand it, I don't understand what superior.
That's yeah. Okay, let me read this. Let me put it up on the screen actually, and we'll talk about it for a second because it's a really great point. Because it's funny because like you picked up on that as well. That's what it's like. Said, well, Sean thinks he's. I keep wanting to say seen. Wow, he's seen somebody. No, that's Sean. Spelled correctly too, by the way, according to a friend of mine named Sean. But it's spelled like that. And he said, wow, Sean thinks he's being smart. He's trying to trap Bart in the progress to something. Yeah. Nonsense, trying to frame that something as objective moral truth. Sean is so transparent. Yeah, that's their thing. They're like, well, if we all subjectively agree that things are getting better, then that means there must be an objective good that we're all getting to eventually. Just eventually we'll figure it out. We'll figure out the objective moral truth or whatever. One day you'll see. It's we haven't gotten there yet. And we can't get there because it's not. We all have individual prides. Oh my God, so weird. It's like,
or progress means any more than I made progress in the kind of ice cream flavor that I like. If it's all subjective, what does superior and progress even mean?
But that's the point. Like you could say that ice cream has gotten better, right? Like we've gotten better, but that doesn't mean that there's an objectively perfect ice cream, right? Well, I guess some people would argue that our ice cream used to be better, probably before all that fucking shrinkflation, right? That's what it was back in the 1950s when there was like 7 people on planet Earth, and so everybody got to have all the resources, and the billionaires hadn't stolen everything and gave us the crumbs that were left over yet. Anyway, but if all that didn't happen and there were better ice cream flavors or whatever than there was back in the day, and it's because we're developing, all the ice cream flavors and stuff. Sean's trying to make the case that there's a magical fucking ice cream god, and that's why there's a best ice cream flavor, and it's whatever his subjective opinion is about what his ice cream god's opinion is about the best ice cream, and that's objective. Holy shit.
So this seems to be an issue that you're very intent upon.
So can we move on? So you don't know what objectivity is. Can we just move on? Can we go somewhere else, please?
You and I share a human DNA that has been transformed over the centuries because of the way culture developed.
That's right.
If you yourself think you have access to moral absolutes, which I think you believe you do have access to them. Is that correct?
Sean is objectively an idiot. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
You think that you have access to them?
Yeah, I would use the term objective moral truths, but I'm with you in general. Go.
He's got a problem with the word absolute, but not a problem with the word objective. What? Okay. I'd love to hear that breakdown, actually.
As opposed to, what did I say? I thought
Just,
I said objective.
I'm quibbling.
like
Sorry, I tend to not use the
absolute.
term absolute for an issue you raised earlier that I think murder is
Because you. That's why it's you that's the thing there.
wrong.
Yeah, you
But
think they're objective moral truths, right?
yes,
And you admit that in different cultures they have different views of what those objective moral truths are. Different cultures have different views of moral objective truths.
I think different cultures have common moral principles that transcend culture. These are principles that are universal or near universal, even though the practices.
If it's near universal, then it couldn't be objective. You can't use that as your basis for objectivity, dude.
May vary, which is what we would expect.
Okay.
And so all I'm asking, go ahead.
One of my top moral priorities is to help people who are hungry and homeless.
Okay.
And I think that for me, that is a very kind of core moral value.
But what if they don't deserve it, Bart? Okay. What if a rich billionaire has convinced me to be so selfish that I'm like, but they didn't earn it? And Jesus actually said, if you don't work, you don't eat. And I don't think that the McDonald's guy doesn't work hard enough. Okay. All he's doing is standing there flipping break. Get the hell out of here. Okay. No, he doesn't deserve it. And they think that's true for medical care too. Holy shit.
And I try to act on it. That moral value was not in evidence for the vast majority of the 300,000 years that Homo sapiens have been in existence.
Mm.
Well, he probably disagrees with that right there. He's like, well, you got the amount of time wrong. Actually, it's only been about 6,000 years, roughly, give or take a decade.
And so if you want to say that we all have those moral values, I think history would show you that you're wrong. That in fact, those moral values have been around. That particular moral value as being like a high importance to help those in need has been around for about 1,800 years out of the 300,000 years that humans have existed. So I don't think we all have the same moral code.
Okay, so a couple things. You said your moral value is to help the hungry and the homeless, and that's one you deeply hold. By the way, I applaud you for that. I think that is an objectively good moral thing to do.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You're conservative, dude. Helping the homeless, really, dude. You're probably a drug addict. He's probably homeless because of the crack, and that wasn't the thing that he started doing because he was homeless. No, it was the other way around. Yeah, that's what it is. As he was smoking crack first. Yeah. And then became homeless because of the crack. That's what happened. That's why I'm going to choose to believe that that's what that is, so that I don't have to give a shit.
And if I understand correctly, on your own blog, you give away the proceeds of people who, am I correct on that? You give away the proceeds of people who subscribe to your blog. You give away to the poor, to the needy, etc. Am I right on that?
Yeah, the last 3 years we've given $1.5 million to charities dealing with hunger, homelessness, and disaster relief.
Amazing. I love that. And I would say good for you because you're helping people who can't help themselves. I love that.
Yeah. It is where you and I can have common cause. I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, and with just anybody who has that kind of moral sense. My point of my book is that moral sense was a sense that that nobody had in the ancient world, and to claim it as some kind of objective moral value is, I think, ahistorical. It's not recognizing the realities of the human race.
Okay, so I do agree with you that things like hospitals and orphanages and nursing homes and charity and forgiveness, caring for the poor and the weak came in terms of a universal ethic. It came through Jesus. That doesn't mean that all morality,
the universal ethic that came through Jesus,
is therefore subjective. In terms of a universal ethic, it came through Jesus. That doesn't mean that all morality is therefore subjective. And it doesn't mean that Jesus' teaching isn't more objectively right than previous teaching. I don't think that follows from it. So part of my question for you would be, is I applaud you. We have common cause. Because
I don't even know what the hell he's talking about at this point. I'm just like, fucking what? What are we talking about Jesus again? I really?
I say, hey, the poor that you're giving money to are made in the image of God. They have value and they have dignity. And so we ought to, those of us who have power and privilege, etc., ought to care for those who don't. But it seems to me, if you're saying this is...
That's right. The answer is always Jesus, according to Jesus. He said he is always the answer and the life, truth, and way, or whatever the hell he said.
Just your subjective value and you do it. And it's not objectively true. You could have said, I'm going to take the proceeds from my blog and I'm going to give it to advance racism or sexism. And that's just my personal, private, subjective feeling.
Can we clip that? Let's clip that because that's actually accurate. Hold on. Let me see.
You could have.
No, not that. Not that. Everybody ignore that part. The part right after he said you could have said,
I'm going to take the proceeds from my blog and I'm going to give it to advance racism or sexism. And that's just my personal, private, subjective feeling.
Let's clip that. Yeah, let's get that. Kevin, can you get on that? I'm going to need a short or TikTok created right out of that. Let's make that happen, please.
And by your standard, if I hear you correctly, that's not actually wrong. You don't prefer it, you don't like it, but that's not really wrong in itself. And one thing before you say this is you said I'm hung up on this. At the root of your book is about the moral transformation of the West. And you dismiss the moral argument, which is fine. You're totally welcome to do so. I mean,
because it's a stupid argument and it's like everybody seems to fucking forget what the point of that goddamn argument is. The conclusion at the end of the day is therefore God. That's the point of the argument. That's why it's like a stupid argument that has no business being here. You know what I mean? As far as like philosophy goes or whatever, he's talking to a scholar, a Bible scholar, a historian, a Bible scholar and everything. And he's talking about how the morality has improved and everything. Although like I said, I guess he did teach classes on ancient ethics and stuff. So he's more versed on it than I would have thought. But still, it's just like that's why I'm just like, dude, you're only trying to say that it's objectively moral because you want to believe that there's a God, and as long as there's a God that decides it, then it's objectively moral, even though all we actually have is your subjective opinion about what you think your God's subjective opinion is. That's it. And y'all can't even line it up. You got 45,000 different denominations, and they're vastly different.
Join this give and take. But part of this question is, what describes reality?
Well, if y'all want to hit that like button, that'd be great. I'd appreciate it.
Reality. Can evolution and natural selection, in the way you take it, if I understand correctly, describe morality and the rest of our beliefs? Or is there something in the world that points beyond itself to a God and an objective moral code?
See, It's to a God. Does it point to the God that definitely does exist, and it's the basis for my whole belief system, and is exactly the reason I'm purposefully misunderstanding what objectivity is? What about that?
That's the question. So part of your blog, it seems to me you're saying, yes, it's your private inclinations,
Yeah,
but it would follow that if you used it for anything else, there is no moral distinction, which makes me raise the question, why are you doing it then? If it's not objectively good, does it make you feel good? Is it virtue signaling? I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying it raises the question, if this is not objectively good, why choose A over B? Just because you like it?
I think part of the problem I'm having with this conversation is that you're raising so many points when you talk that each one needs to be dealt with separately. And so it's...
Yeah, that's their whole game. They kind of like bring up a bunch of like independent kind of ideas that all include quite a bit of nuance, and then try to just black and white the whole thing, you know? Just the fallacy of excluded middle just spread all over this shit.
Very difficult to have a conversation about any of the single points. I mean, to begin with, you agreed that throughout the vast majority of human history, people have not felt this need to help those who are hungry and thirsty. If they weren't friends and families. That means that most people did not have the moral inclinations that you have. But then you claim that your moral inclinations are objective. And either that means that you have greater access to objective truth than 99.99% of the human race since it's existed, or it means you're contradicting yourself.
Yeah, and you just think that you got it. Yeah.
And so, you know, you're making a lot of other points about how you have to have objectivity in order, because otherwise it could be random, or that objectivity proves that there is a God. And, you know, those are other points. My point here is that you've agreed that your inclination to help those in need is based on the development within the human psyche. You said that you agreed with my sense that Jesus transformed the moral conscience of the West. If he transformed it, that means the moral conscience now is different from what it was before.
That's why the Gone with the Wind is a objectively good movie. It was the objectively best movie back then, but now I think we can all agree it's I don't know. Is it Endgame? I don't know what we're doing these days. I don't think the Academy would agree with that, but people would. Seat right there. Just seat right there. We can't even have an objectively best movie, even with something as awesome as Endgame existing. So, you know, this is what I'm saying. Because movies are made by people, and you can't remove the moviness from the peopleness, because the people are what create them.
Which means that people haven't always had access to this objectivity, which should raise questions for you about what you even mean by anybody having access to it, including your example about torture.
Baseballs works. I should have gotten. For a second, I was like, old school, or, you know, because I really do like old school, or Tommy Boy. I'm kind of, you know, those are two movies. I don't even know. I think I've watched them probably about 1,000 times each.
A child, which of course I agree with. But if you can list that as an example of what's morally objective, why not list everything?
Okay, so this is helpful.
Nice.
And
I'm like, here's some noise in my headphones, and I'm like, is that me, or is there like somebody hitting something? What's going on here?
I'm certainly not trying to pile on too many objections. We can take them one by one. That's fair and the right thing to do. So I don't want to do that.
Objectively, the right thing to do, or I'd be great if you could prove that.
Let me take that back, but let's focus on the one that you made, namely that Jesus transformed the moral teachings of the West.
That's it.
Moral conscience of the West.
The conscience of the West. Thank you. So I agree with that. Insofar as it goes, I would say Jesus expanded the moral conscience of the West. Yes. So there still was, and this is Lewis's argument that I think you agree with, some basic moral principles that people have across cultures. There's a sense that right and wrong exist, and I ought to be a good person, even though maybe culturally it's defined differently in culture A versus culture B. I ought to love people, even though love looks differently in culture A versus cultural B. I ought to care for my children on posterity, although that looks differently. So the point is not the practice, but there are moral principles that we find. This is Lewis's argument in The Abolition of Man, that are across cultures, these common basic moral principle commitments, although the practice changes. So that moral objectivity has existed from the beginning, and I would argue is in the scripture, which is a separate question. And so I'm not saying Jesus introduced this idea of moral teaching and it didn't exist before. I'm saying he expanded a certain moral belief that existed before then. In terms of globally, he expanded it, but he also expanded it to include the disenfranchised, include the poor, those in the out group. So I don't think there's any inconsistency in saying Jesus expanded our moral teachings, because we do see common moral teachings before the time of Jesus. So there's no inconsistency in the argument that I'm making, which is why Christians applaud things like books by Tom Holland. And I thought your book was so great. I was like, yeah, hospitals, orphanages, this is the teachings of Jesus, because he expanded these truths that we have to those who couldn't experience it in the past. So
it's your subjective opinion that all of that was a lot. That isn't a contradiction. How did Jesus made us, right? Like I thought your book says that he was there before anything was made. In fact, when everything was made, that was in fact made. Redundant. I don't know why that needed to be said. He was there when that was like that. So why didn't he just start from the get? Like why all this development? What the hell? What's with all the wasted goddamn time? What's with all the slaves that were born into slavery, lived a tormented, tortured life, and then died before ever having to ever being able to taste freedom at all? What about all of them? Like, Jesus Christ.
Does that make sense, or should we keep going?
No, it's the thesis of my book. But I mean, that's the thesis of my book, that Jesus transformed something that was already there. People had a moral conscience. I mean, I talk about moral discussions that go back as far as we have literature and trace them up to Jesus' day and up to today. So there are transformations. I think the point is that you see kind of common moral values across cultures. For example, parents love their children and take care of them across cultures. Virtually every culture thinks.
And that's just because of evolution, dude. Like, that's because our species wouldn't have survived had that not been something that we would genetically save up.
Said in some instances, it's wrong to murder somebody. You can,
in some instances, depending upon what that instance is,
go down a list of things that are broadly shared. Sure. Even though, as you agree, the practices are quite different, so that we think that child sacrifice is a heinous idea, and other people thought this was a really good idea. Okay, so there are differences and similarities. You're saying that the similarities across cultures demonstrate, as C.S. Lewis argued, that there must be it must have been given to us by some superior being, and that there's some kind of objective morality. I'm disagreeing with that. This is not a big point for me in the book. And so I just want people to know that.
Yeah, because that he doesn't care. The whole point is just to get you to go, I don't think anything's objectively moral. And they go, see, evil. They're evil. Even though it's more likely for a secular humanist to be more objective about their opinion of what is like right and wrong, because it would be based off of an actual system of harm rather than like whatever the hell they think their God wants them to do whenever the hell they think their God wants them to do it. If they think that their God wants them to go hurt somebody, and they got to touch them with these special gloves, right? The special gloves help out. And then they can see all the evil things that they've done. And then they have a special axe that was glowing one time. Then he found it and he was like, oh man, that's gonna be the thing that God told me to take out the bad people, that the magical gloves will show me what all the evil stuff they done. Like that could easily be the case for a religious person, but not for a secular humanist.
I do think that Christians will appreciate many parts of this book. They'll, like you, they'll disagree with other parts. I think many Christians will disagree with, the most Christians I know will disagree with parts other than the ones you're trying to focus on in terms of objectivity. Yeah. But there are other explanations for what Lewis identifies in several of his writings about people having a shared moral sense. There are other ways to explain it that, in my opinion, that don't affect my thesis, but in my opinion, are superior to his view.
Okay, so
that face was awesome. Hold on, let's look at that.
In my opinion, that don't affect my thesis, but in my opinion, are superior to his view.
I got something. Hold on, let me think.
Okay, so let me see where we go from here. I agree. There's a ton more in your book that we haven't.
Let me see where we go from there.
Talked about here, which
I only studied for the objectivity thing. We got to go through the history stuff too. We actually, I know you're a historian and everything, but I really just wanted to argue about objectivity, for the full hour.
Which is in part why I sent a note to your team and I said, here's what I'm interested in exploring. Is this okay with Bart? They agreed. I was like, great.
Oh my
so we can't
God.
cover.
Cut the fuck. But I checked with your handlers. Do we call them handlers? I don't know. It's like your people, whatever.
Everything in the book. There's some New Testament critiques about atonement and forgiveness that are fascinating.
Yeah, I didn't think you'd like that.
Well, those are very interesting points.
Yeah, because the perfect God. Because this is the other part that really is interesting to me, anyway. When you get into this kind of conversation, when you're looking at the perfect God who invented morality. He also is the one that needed to smell the burning flesh of animals and stuff not because anybody's gonna eat it or anything, just because he just likes animals being tortured and burned. That's not bad. You don't think it's bad to torture dogs? I mean, maybe if you're that one lady in the Trump administration, which one? No, is it no? Anyway, but everybody else doesn't think it's cool to torture dogs, man. It's just there's something about it. But your perfect, all-knowing God did, even though all the rest of us intuitively seem to know not to want to do that.
And that's another time for it's another time we can debate that. But partly, I'm not.
He was trying to say that's a debate for another time, but we got there. We got you, Sean. I'm Sean, I got you, buddy. Don't worry about it.
Actually making the argument that there's commonality across culture.
What the hell is
and that
drinking, dude? What the hell? I'm sorry. I'm I know we're still stuck on the same aspect of it, and it's I thought we were talking about moving on to some of the other things in the book.
Proves that it comes from God. That's not my actually making the argument.
I want to see what
that there's commonality.
What the hell is it? It's just it's too dark to be orange juice. Is this some kind of is it some kind of old person drink? Is it one of those shit, what's that called? The stuff that Gatorade never mind.
Across culture. And that proves that it comes from God. That's not
Pedialyte. That's what I was thinking of. It came to me. Sorry, took a second.
Not my point. I was simply pushing back and saying, responding to what you said was an apparent contradiction in my belief that
it better not be carrot juice. I will immediately switch sides in this debate right now because of the carrot juice thing. I swear to fucking God.
Jesus is the one who brought this moral teaching to the world. And I'm saying there's actually commonality before this time that exists across culture. C.S. Lewis pointed that out. The follow-up question. Okay.
I agree with that.
Right. And the follow-up question is, I think, where we differ in the sense of what best explains those common beliefs across culture. That
Biola University sounds like a place that issues degrees of crayon. That's right. I just said that, that's from that's Crayola.
That's
Right.
where I think we differ.
Biola.
And to me, that's what's most interesting about the book, even though there's plenty of other interesting stuff and we are disagreeing on certain issues. You're right. There's plenty of other stuff here. That's why I said I find your book fascinating. I was intrigued by it. There's plenty of other stuff. We have more common ground in this book than we do difference.
Absolutely.
To me, when I read a book like
But I just had to spend the first 40 minutes just harping about objectivity, not knowing what it is.
like this, I'm trying to find what is the best explanation. Because if evolution, as you laid out, can sufficiently account for our belief in morality, then that doesn't mean there's no God. That just means that this argument doesn't point towards God.
That's right.
So
I don't argue whether there's a God or not. My book has nothing to do with whether.
Oh, there's the Biola. Okay, I see. I see what you're talking about. I was like, where's this Biola stuff coming from? I must have missed that.
There's a God or not.
You're talking about
Oh, no.
this argument doesn't point towards God.
That's right.
So
I don't argue whether there's a God or not. My book has nothing to do with whether there's a God or not.
You're talking about, that's a subline text. Now you tell your story a little.
No, he's just not convinced that it is, but that doesn't mean that's what the book's about, dude.
Little bit of having questions about God, becoming an agnostic, at least for a season, and then still having a moral code. So kind of underlies it.
What's up, Drusilla? How we doing? Yes, you are late. Like really, really late. And I know it's not your fault. I've been going like weirdly randomly lately. So that's nobody's fault. I get it. Sorry.
But maybe, part of this ethic of Jesus, could you tell us what exactly do you think is unique about the teachings that Jesus gave?
I think there are a couple of things. And you mentioned them. You mentioned them. Well, you mentioned one of them anyway. It's been throughout the human race, ever since there's been a species, that humans take care of others within who are genetically and socially related to them. That's always been the case. It's true of every species. It's true of honeybees. It is true of chimpanzees. It's true of snakes. Any species that does not have some sense of altruism would not survive as a species, because if it's every individual for themselves, they're too easily picked off by their enemies. And so every species has that. Darwin recognized that. Darwin didn't know about genes yet, but before they knew that there were genetic explanations for this, Darwin recognized that survival of the fittest does not mean every individual for himself.
That it's so funny too, because so frequently, look at his face, dude. Because so frequently I've had to explain this to theists that are like, but Darwin would think that everybody just be cutting each other up, trying to survive harder than each other. I'm like, dude, we're literally a social species. That's like how we thrive. Like the one person, like a 1-to-1 man versus bear. Not that conversation. That's a whole different thing. I'm not. Anyway, but a man and a bear, so it's a different. Anyway, but the one-on-one, the bear would take him out, no problem, right? But because the reason that bears are not over us on the food chain is because there's a bunch of us, and we all go, hey guys, what do you want to do? Okay, let's all get our spears together on this sucker. All right, make sure the spears are nice and long. Their claws are like quite large. Okay, I don't want to get my face cut off. Stu still just doesn't. It's that the image of Stu's face just been wow, that's nightmares. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, long spears. Let's get this done.
It means that the group has to have coherence. That requires cooperation, and on some level, then that requires altruism. So that was there. And in Greek and Roman moral philosophy, Jesus is born in the Roman world, within Greek philosophical traditions that Romans inherited. They go back we can trace them definitely back through Aristotle to Plato to Socrates, and there certainly were pre-Socratic philosophers who held these views. In the views that are advanced there, the idea is that you absolutely have to be loving towards other people and caring for other people and helping other people, but it was always within the group that is socially and biologically related to you in some way or another, not the outsider. My argument in the book is that Jesus universalized this so that it would be applied to anybody in need, whether they were in your social group or not, whether they're part of your family, your friends, whether they shared your nationality, your ethnicity, your race, anything else, didn't matter. If they were in need, those are the people you're supposed to help. What I argue in my book is that that is different from what you get in Greek and Roman philosophy, and it's different from what you get from the Hebrew Bible, and it's different. So I'm not saying that he's against Judaism. I'm not saying against Greek and Roman philosophy. He would have agreed with a lot of Aristotle. I mean, he would have, but
he knows he lost the Sean knows he lost the debate, so he wants to learn from Bart now. Yeah, and I wish we could have done this, but 20 minutes would have been fine. You know what I mean? On the whole objective or subjective thing. 20 minutes, I think, would have been more than sufficient for everybody to make their points. No, we got more than half, 40 minutes. This is only an hour-long debate.
But I'm saying the idea of just of the priority being people in need, no matter what, I think is the major innovation.
Okay.
And that's what transformed our conscience. That's transformed our conscience, because the idea that, if your brother gets, run over by a car, you should take care of him. Everybody has that. It's part of our DNA. But the idea that you should worry about someone.
I don't know. Yeah, you haven't met my brother. He's pretty bad. Okay. He's mean.
In Sudan, who's starving to death, that was not a thing in the ancient world. And it wasn't just because of communication issues. They didn't know about the Sudan. It's because that was somebody else's concern. Our concern is our group.
Okay, that makes sense. So I think in some ways, if I understand you correctly, we have an answer to the question I started by asking you, in the sense of, is this an improvement more?
We are above bears on the food chain, and bears are above honey jars and picnic baskets.
Morally, to use your terms that you used, progress, or is this just a change and a shift that's not actually morally better? That's the heart of the question that I wanted to ask, because you're right. I agree with you. We can use terms like revolution and transformation for the
we're going back to it again. We're going to rehash this, really.
Teachings of Jesus, how they've been spread around the world. It's that significant. But part of my question is this actually a genuine improvement? Do we have obligations to care for the poor, or are these just inclinations that bubble up because of our culture or because of evolution? And it sounds like you're saying, just for clarity, that these are just inclinations that bubble up because of culture. We don't actually have those obligations.
I mean, I think the problem is that in your worldview, if you don't have objective reality that we can access, that there are no grounds for what we think, what we believe, how we behave, that you've got to have some kind of objective grounding for it. And it's very difficult for you to understand a world in which people have very distinct beliefs and understanding of what's true and how they want to behave, if they don't have it grounded in these kinds of objective anchors, if you want to call them. I'm not sure what you would call them, but you've got to have these objective truths. And so it's very Platonic of you. I mean, this goes back to Plato, and it's completely understandable. It's what I used to think, and now I realize it doesn't make any sense. So
it just doesn't reflect reality at all, man. This is a thing that develops and stuff, and we can say it's better or whatever, but honestly, stuff's just sort of happening. It's just, because here's the thing. Most of us, I think, whether we say it or not, think that more of us being okay is better than not, right? And so that is just kind of the basis that we're all going off here when it comes to being loving people that are outside of our in-group. And that's just sort of kept progressing, mainly because our honestly, our in-group has kind of morphed because you keep having these avatar, to use a modern reference, I think, situations, Pocahontas, whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't get, dances with wolves, just you name it. There's a bunch of examples we could use here, but that shit keeps on happening, and then you can't really tell who's who and who's what, because there's too many of us, and we're all sort of the in group because we're all just people,
But you don't need objective groundings for feeling like you need to help somebody in need. It's part of who you are. It's part of how you are wired. It's not because like you don't have. It's not like you have a 10 commandments written on the law and you see this one, oh, don't steal. Okay, there it is. That's the objective thing. I cannot steal, therefore I won't steal.
Because it's their whole thing is obedience, and that's that's a point that I feel like it's not about right and wrong. That's why his face looks like this right now, because he wants morality so badly to be just do what God said. Just do it. Do what God wants you to do. Like, be obedient, just like parents want their kids to just be obedient, even though their parents could be wrong or whatever. But and obeying your parents isn't always good. But anyway, it's just that. But that's their thing. They want subjugation and an obedience to equal moral good, and it just doesn't.
It's that you have certain inclinations that are built into you, and you shouldn't say that that's just why you feel it, or it is merely because you have a subjective view or you have a feeling. It's not like merely or just. It's what it means to be a human being, and so we have different views, and it's rooted in your sense there has to be some kind of objectivity, or there are no grounds for faith, belief, understanding of truth, behavior, or anything else. And I think that's completely and demonstrably wrong.
And that's fine. You call the moral argument, blindingly flawed. That doesn't bother me at all. I appreciated your clarity on it. Look, that's totally fine with me. I appreciate when somebody doesn't dance around it and they say exactly what they think. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, that I'm failing to understand this. I've read tons of evolutionary ethics, atheist ethics, had a lot of
atheism doesn't have ethics. Okay. It's again, they try to act like atheism is just the same thing as Christianity, but just in the opposite direction, and it's not.
Conversations. I'm simply asking the question, what best explains this deep belief we have in moral rights and in moral duties and in our obligation to the poor? What best explains that? And it seems to me, if I'm failing to understand something, I would push back and say, you're failing to understand this. And again, maybe this is just bringing clarity for folks, but you write in your book.
I'm just saying that it seems like it's because you say it's just based on subjectivity, as if that's like a lower criterion of truth, because that's what you generally think. It's a lower criterion of truth. And so I'm saying that I don't
literally all we got, dude. Like it is the absolute best either of you can do.
I don't think you understand it if you think it's a lower criterion of truth.
I think when it comes to morality, then you can't escape a relativistic morality. That's my point. So again, back to history and back to...
You can escape it.
Okay, so that's where, let me read this, and then you tell me how you think you can escape it in a meaningful way, okay? So you write this in the introduction, page 14. You said, some evangelical Christians tell me this makes no sense. By the way, let me take a step back. And you can...
It's hilarious, too, because, like, they are so morally relativistic, it's unreal. It all depends on their subjective interpretation of their doctrine, of their denomination, of their religion, and then they're going to say that is the objective fact, even though it's relative to all that shit, like what the fuck?
Correct the story. You're talking about how this is chapter 2, the ancient quest for happiness, and you described that you left the faith for what I know. Would I know how to behave without any direction from above? Would I have no moral compass? Would I fall into meaninglessness, nihilism, anarchy, and despair? Would I be drunk in would it be drunken revelry every night? Well written, by the way. You said, despite these concerns, I felt driven to follow where I thought the truth led. In the end, I didn't see an alternative. For reasons unconnected with biblical scholarship, I began to recognize that I had become an agnostic. And of course, that's your book, God's Problem and the Problem of Evil, an important book in its own right. One of my biggest surprises was that my deconversion had almost zero effect on my daily life. Anarchy and wild living never did arrive. Today, all these years later, I'm no less ethical than I was before. I'm not much more ethical either. I appreciate your candor, as it turns out, but I do seem to have a more refined sense of what it means to be a moral person. And I do work hard, often without much success, to do what is right, both for myself and for others. And then we get to the key point. Now, I'm just reading this for context so people understand and get it stated correctly. You said, some evangelical Christians tell me this makes no sense, that unlike believers in God, I have no reason to be moral. They think I'm deceived when I insist I feel a deep commitment to other members of a species that originated through time, matter, and chance. Without divine guidance, they say, I have no grounds for deciding what is right and wrong, and no incentive to behave well. So when I read this, my thoughts were a few things. I don't think you're deceived at all when you feel a deep commitment to other members of your species. I don't know why any Christian would tell you that you're deceived in that. I think without God, somebody could have some means or reasons to decide what is right and wrong, and they could have some incentive to behave well. But when this says, I feel a deep commitment, you keep pointing back again, as far as I understand you correctly, to inclinations and feelings and beliefs. And it says this originated through time, matter, and chance. So these beliefs that are deep-seated, in your own words, emerged through time, matter, and chance. So given that evolution is a contingent process and it could have resulted in a different outcome, Darwin himself said, why does a process that creates feelings in us through time, matter, and chance have any authority? Why is one feeling better than another feeling if time, matter, and chance are the driving forces behind it?
Oh, God.
That's the question for me. And I think that's where we're differing. I don't see why that subjectivity results in, it answers the question of why we should be moral.
It's like they have to go back to the reductionist shit because he's got actually nothing. You know, if it were just matter and energy, what was anything really? But we're not just matter and energy. We're matter and energy that ended up through a particular process, developing a very specific way for very specific reasons. It just wasn't on purpose by a all-powerful like God or whatever. So, and they're just like, oh man, I can't figure it out. Like it just totally blows their brain. But the ironic part is that the guy that's saying that his God is what provides objective values or whatever, seems to produce the most awful, hateful, selfish, hating anybody. Right now, the driving force that all these people that support Trump are unified in is they hate immigrants and trans people, but they've kind of moved, you know, they're not as heavily focused on the trans people for half a second. They'll get back to it. But yeah, that's their thing. They're the most hateful, selfish people ever. And yet they're all Christians. They'll all tell you they're Christians and everything. And his only real excuse to do this is, well, they're not real Christians, even though he agrees with them on like 99% of the shit they believe.
Right. I know that's your view. And you have a lot of feelings for a lot of things. I'm not sure what you're drinking now. Is that coffee?
You know what? It's a Think Biblically mug, Bart. If we meet in person, I would give you one. It's literally just water.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So, you know, why do you like to drink water? You know, you got this inclination and you just, you want to drink water and you like water. I'm drinking a combination of tonic and juice here. And, I like that.
Okay. It's tonic and juice. Better not be goddamn carrot juice. I swear to God. Oh my God.
And it's what I drink because it's what I like. And I prefer drinking that. And I think I ought to drink that. And the fact that I feel that way and that I really love this mixture that I'm drinking, this emotion of love toward it and its inclination to make me want to make this thing and drink it does not prove that there's a God.
Very well said. And we're done on that, on the moral argument note. Holy shit.
It proves that I'm shaped in a certain way to have inclinations, and I try to follow them. You could argue that the inclinations were given to me by God, which is your view, C.S. Lewis's view. My view is that you can explain this without appealing to God, that there are other problems in believing in God that we're not getting into here, obviously, but I have no problem with believing that we've developed in certain ways so as to prefer certain things to others and to feel so firmly committed to those beliefs that we act out on them, we base our entire lives on them. And it isn't because there has to be some kind of objectivity or we shouldn't feel that way. I mean, I'm going to like this thing whether, there's an objective value up there in the sky that says the tonic and this juice mixture is good. It's good because I think it's good. You might find it repulsive. I find human sacrifice repulsive. Other people found it good.
Including the Christian God that almost made Abraham do it to his kid. And he just drowned a whole planet worth of humans, babies, kittens, puppies, a whole planet worth of them. But that thing's objectively good. That would be one of the problems, I think, that Bart Ehrman was talking about with believing in a perfectly objectively moral God. And if it is an objective value that's been given to us, you still have to explain why, for the vast majority of human history, most people haven't shared your moral values.
So in the last part, that's obviously where we differ. And you're right that people don't share my particular moral values. But it is interesting, the commonality, again, across culture on basic moral principles. I think that's what requires explanation, but that's a secondary point we've gone back and forth on.
But see, this is the problem here too, and I haven't brought this up yet. The religious shit never stays there. He's always like, oh, but this crosses over from culture to culture, right? The Christian beliefs about right and wrong never stay within that. They always manage to be like, oh man, this other culture. Which again, according to the 10 Commandments, they have another culture that beats on drums and sings songs or whatever. Those people are evil for being a different culture. So it's not that it's these it proves God because across cultural lines we don't unalive our own children or whatever the fuck. They are afraid of a shape, man. They're afraid of pentagrams. They would say that the shape pentagram is evil, and the reason that they would say that is not because it's connected to harm that's done to I don't know, an entire demographic of people, other shapes that are actually harmful because they incite fear on purpose in an entire group of people that were subjugated by another group of people. So that would be why that is a harmful shape. Their shape is, I think, magical monsters come out of it. That's seriously the extent of why the shape of a pentagram is evil to them.
But I will point out that every species has this. It isn't just humans who can think and believe in God. Every species has shared moral values. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about chimpanzees or honeybees. They all do. And so the fact we have it, I mean, do you think that the fact that you have guardian bees that protect the hive by killing themselves in order to keep an invader out, is that a proof for the existence of God? I don't think so, but it's a universal honeybee view. We're just going to disagree on this. I'm just saying that my view is as coherent as your view.
So
it's not.
I would say his view is more coherent because it's actually founded in data that's based in evidence and not in just whatever his subjective interpretation of his doctrine, of his denomination, of his religion is.
Yeah, it's not just some kind of subjective, I'm choosing, it's not like that. It is just as coherent because I think it's written into us because of our evolution.
Okay, so I'm actually not trying to persuade you to believe differently any more than you're probably trying to persuade me. One of the things I do in the show is I want clarity for people listening, exactly what's at stake, what morality entails, and then people can decide what they think.
Come on, man. Don't make excuses now. Jesus Christ.
That's part of the goal. So I'd say a couple things back, and then I have, I'll certainly let you respond if you want to, but I have one last question for you. I want to respect your time. But the example that you gave about drinking water or juice and tonic it's a feeling, it's an urge, it's an instinct. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. We drink and we act biologically because of instinct. The question is, are our moral beliefs...
Hey, what's up, John? I don't know if I said hey yet. Bart is laughing and Sean is buttering. Yeah, you could see him getting mad. Getting mad. I mean, because there's no way. I mean, and this is on, keep in mind, this is on Sean McDowell's channel, right? So he's supposed to win, you know, but he didn't. Like hard. He didn't. Like, my goodness. He lost this harder than Ron Jeremy, if you know the really old reference of that. But anyway, if you've seen that Boondock Saints movie, he was the racist guy's henchman. Not really sure how that helps with the point that I was making. Anyway.
Akin to instinct.
Forget it.
And this is where Lewis also argued separately. He said, we have instincts to help people and we have instincts to hurt people. So just like you have instincts to drink water or drink tonic, if there's no human value, if there's no standard outside of us, then one is really not any better than the other, morally speaking, although it might be
reductionist shit once again. My God, dude. Seriously?
Better biologically, that's a separate issue.
And why do we have those? Because the why, it's not like they're just all just random fucking feelings, dude, or inclinations or whatever. Come on, man.
And so your example seems to show that all the things you rail against in the book, racism, genocide, sexism. In fact, there's a point in your book where you seemingly condemn Christians for forcing their morals on other people. If morality is all instinct, I don't even know how to make sense of those kinds of moral condemnations in the way that you do. So you said that I have some inconsistency earlier. Fine, I'll leave it to...
because of your belief, your philosophical, connected to nothing fucking belief about when a life comes into existence, women are bleeding out on hospital waiting room floors. So yeah, I would say that would be your, weird moral philosophy, reductionist shit where you black and white everything and can't handle the nuance of, a person just being part of the process of a person coming into existence and just accepting that process as what it is, a fucking process, and not just it's a person. No, I have to decide. I have to draw the line. It's got to be black and white. It's you can't have process. It's now. I need it where it needs. Jesus.
Our viewers and listeners to decide if they think there's inconsistency there. But I think there's an inconsistency in just saying morality is a matter of inclination and preference, but then favoring and choosing to give to the poor in a way that seems to be morally superior. And then in your book, condemning things like Christians who weaponize the Bible against others. So I think there's an inconsistency there. Tell me why there's not. And then I have one last question for you, if that's okay.
I think there's only an inconsistency if you think there has to be an objective value that you're subscribing to. I still think you really don't understand the idea of how subjectivity and our inherent human nature guides us in action, so that it's not just that, it is that. That is how we are. Of course, and drinking.
And it's like in the feeling of wanting it to be objective is also because of just that. And that's all it is for him. This need, just like the desire to have meaning in a meaningless universe is like, it's part of us. It just is what developed because of the way we developed. That's it. I know you want it to be connected to shit like that, but it's not. You got to deal with nuance, man. You got to deal with complicated shit. You got to deal with like making up your own mind. Yeah, going, hold on, I got to appeal to whatever the objective moral truth is that, get this, another human is more knowledgeable than me about that. They just decided they're right about it. And I guess I have decided that they are right about it too. And then I'm just going to obey what that person said. The objective moral truth is at the start of it. It's so sad that they can't get it. They can't get it.
Is an analogy. It's not a moral act, although it can be a moral act.
I agree.
If I were drinking cyanide, you would probably say that ain't good, man. That's immoral because
What's up, Joshua? How we doing?
you're killing yourself. So, but so I have just as strong a moral impulse as you have, but I don't think that saying that it's rooted in some kind of objective morality simply makes any sense if you look at the history of the human race. And if you look at cross-cultural anthropology and other things. So I just
pretty much all the data that we have that actually is objective data, or the actual data, like what we think about it is, I guess, would be subjective. But like the data based on evidence that would evaluated by people that understand critical thinking and can acknowledge when they're wrong about shit so that they can update their positions on what they were wrong about.
So we're just going to disagree on that. I think that the idea of objectivity provides people with a kind of sense of satisfaction that their views are rooted in ultimate reality and that other people are just making stuff up. And I get that impulse. There's one I had for a long time. I don't agree with it anymore. I think that it's just wrong. It's not why we behave. If we all did have an objective sense of morality, the world would not be in the mess that it's in right now.
There we go. Yeah, bring it to now. Let's talk about how Christians are behaving now, right now, as they're, listening to billionaires say that billionaires deserve to have the too much, the so much more than everybody else while kids are starving right down the fucking street. Do that. And then the starving kids, they need to have the stuff that helps them, like those programs cut, and worldwide cut. The programs that help, keep diseases from spreading planet-wide, cut. Get rid of that. Jesus Christ.
So oh man, I have so many questions for you. When you said a kind of satisfaction, it depends on what we mean by satisfaction.
Oh my God.
It's not a feeling of satisfaction for me. The question for me is,
it's not a feeling of satisfaction. What is it? A sandwich?
What is reality? What is true? And I think that's your same question. You make that very clear. And so I think part of the question to clarify is this belief that we have, and
what's up, John? Second John. The Jon, non-H John. Yeah, let's go with non-H John. Yeah, let's go with that from now on.
Majority of people today hold a view of moral realism, I would argue, throughout history, such as burning a child alive for entertainment is wrong.
You goddamn kidding me.
I think that tells us something about the nature of the world, the value of a child, our obligations to one another, how we should.
You can't think of an evolutionary reason why people would maybe not want to unalive their own children. The sad thing is that when people started believing in stupid shit like gods, when their brains developed to that point of believing in God, that's when they did start burning their own kids and thinking that the gods wanted them to
behave and not only love our neighbor, but love thy stranger. I think those are clues to the way reality is. Sounds like you are satisfied, to use the same term, in kind of a bottom-up evolutionary explanation that gives us certain inclinations so we can choose to adopt the teachings of Jesus or not choose them. But that explanation seems to adequately capture our moral beliefs. Is that?
It's what the obvious data shows. It's what the evidence shows, not like what all the people that always end up having all these con men that just happen to do the exact same shit they're doing, but those ones are con men though. Not me though. Not me. I'm the real deal. That's right. Yeah. No, it's just
fair. Would you land there? Is that a fair summary?
People do. And your system, people do choose to follow Jesus' teachings or not too. Everybody chooses. So whether you believe in objective reality or
there
not,
we go.
Everybody chooses.
Why does nobody ever thinks to pull at that thread? I'm like, thank you. Finally, Jesus. Because that's why I always say it's your subjective interpretation of your doctrine, of your denomination, of your religion. These are all you choosing things for yourself that you are deciding. They act like they're just discovering objective facts. Like, no, it's not. You choose your denomination. You choose all this stuff, man. A lot of times you choose it because it's what your parents chose, and they were, you trusted them when they said that they were right about that. And that's it. But like, some people choose it for other reasons. Oh, I think the Bible doesn't make sense when it's talking about like hell being for eternal conscious torment. Like Kirk Cameron just, pissed everybody off in his religion because he said that. It's shit like that. It's decided by you. It's your subjective interpretation, man. It's not objective.
Agree. Yeah. And of course, the question is, are there better choices and worse choices,
right.
morally speaking?
Right.
That's the root of the question.
And many people who deny that subjectivity can be like a compelling argument say, well, you have no reason to think this then. Why do you think that's better? And you think it's better because it corresponds to something objective out there that somehow you have access to, but throughout history, most other people have not had access to. And so that's why I mean it's kind of comforting, because you think you've got the access to the objective reality. Well, okay.
All right, we'll leave psychological motivations aside. I think we've gotten to the point where we've at least clarified.
All right. Yeah, I think I think we've sufficiently been satisfied to use the term both of them used, I guess. At this debate, or we're satisfied with this debate. I'm sorry. Yeah, but that was fun. I enjoyed it. All right. I think I bombed something that scared the time. Anything. She might have just been sleeping. That's it. What is going on? So funny. All right. Here, I'll look at a couple comments first. John just got here, so got it. The apparent universality certain moral claims isn't evidence of objective morals. It's evidence that we, the subjects, see enough common physical and social pressures to express similar claims. I agree. Very good. Yes, that's a great way to explain it. I like that. Yeah, Theo said, I'm not an atheist by choice. I found not enough convincing evidence for the God concept. Too much conflicting. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Based on what you think is convincing, right? All right, so well, hey, we got an ad that we got to play. Not that we got to play, that we want to play, for getting your flag on. You know what I'm saying? That sounded weird. I don't know why. That's get your flag on. You know what I mean? I said it again. I don't know why I did that. But all right, we're gonna take a quick second to hear from our sponsors.
Are you about to engage in blasphemy?
Different, Kevin. Different sponsor. Yeah, I know we're sponsored by Blasphemy, but that's a different. Hold on. Can do the
In 2024, NASA researcher Rachel Lenz gave the world a flag made from NASA images for Pride Month. On January 20th, 2025, the incoming U.S. administration ordered that Artistic Union of Science and Civil Rights deleted. So I tracked down the original images it was made from, recreated it, and then added even more wonders of the cosmos to update the flag to the current, more inclusive form. On the anniversary of the inauguration, I released it. And it went viral several times. Now you can get a physical copy of that artwork as a full-sized flag or a large sticker, as well as space artworks of the other Pride flags: lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, ace, and new flags being added all the time. Get one for yourself or give them as gifts, and celebrate Pride, celebrate science, celebrate resistance, and help support a creator fighting for human rights for all humans. Head to astralpride.com. and use code PUNK at checkout for an exclusive offer.
That's my code. That's my code right there for me. See, she made it for me. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for hanging out. There's a list of ways if you want to support the show. that you should, in fact, do, because it is objectively immoral. By the way, I got it on high authority from the infinitrons that actually determine what is objectively moral, not that stupid weird storm god or whatever the fuck. The infinitrons, they decide what's objectively moral, and it is to do all of the things on this list. All right, y'all. Thanks again for hanging out. This is a lot of fun. And we will say, make sure to stay logical, stay loving, skeptical, and compassionate, because it's objectively good, according to the infinitrons. All right, we'll see you next time.
Screwing off and playing round, making fun of funny clowns, oozing with contempt and hate. The goofball atheist punk apostate, punk apostate. We rage against machines of hate. Punk apostate. We community advocates. We community advocates.
Are you about to engage in blasphemy?